Please join me in welcoming the 60th President of the Society of Thoracic Surgeons, Dr. Jennifer C. Romano.
Thank you, and Joe, thank you very much for those very kind words, and thank you for this past year. It's been very, very enjoyable. Whew, I guess it's finally time to do this. So I hope everyone has had an amazing first day at STS 2025. I want to congratulate again our 3 winners of the Extraordinary Women in Cardiothoracic Surgery Awards, Drs. Donington, Dr. Fuller, and Dr. Saito. It is wonderful to have my family here today, including my mom, my sister, my 2 nieces and nephew, my best friend since college, Minta, and my best friend from Northern Michigan, Katie. And most importantly, welcome to my kids, Maximilian and Allegra, who are usually at home while mommy and daddy are at these meetings, except when you were little enough that we could push you back and forth in a double stroller between the meetings. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the devastation and heartbreak that has been experienced in our host city, Los Angeles. I speak personally of friends and family who have been directly impacted. I know many of you in the audience can say the same. I am grateful for the heroic efforts of first responders who have been able to limit further impact. Thank you to Los Angeles for welcoming us with open arms so that we can share in the vibrance and resilience of your great community. I want to start by acknowledging the incredible people who have supported me along the path to this moment. I have been fortunate to have had individuals who not only mentored, but truly sponsored me. Dr. Bartlett saw something in me that I never did and set me on the path to medicine. Drs. Ed Beauvais and Rick Oye gave me the most incredible training and have truly given me my career. They have created opportunities for me to be engaged nationally, and then they stepped aside and let me shine in my own way. I am truly blessed to have spent my entire career at the most incredible congenital heart center in the world with amazing champions. As many of you know, the most rewarding part of our career is training the next generation of superstars. We have been fortunate at Michigan to keep the brightest stars for ourselves. My prior trainees and junior partners, Drs. Vic Sud, who's with us today, Tim Lancaster, who's back holding down the shop, and Jiyoung Moon have made this year possible. They are wonderful partners and surgeons who have shouldered a lot of weight this year on my behalf. Thank you guys for late nights and your immense kindness. And for anyone who has tried to get on my schedule, Superwoman Kim Crockett is the miracle worker that keeps me organized, on track, and on time. She protects my time and family fiercely, so good luck getting on my calendar. And thank you to the entire Congenital Heart Center that has granted me enormous grace this year with my extra commitments. You are the absolute best team of individuals that I get to call friends and colleagues. I've often said over the past year that I have received far more from my time with the STS than the STS received from me. It has been an honor to work aside Tom McGilvery and Joe Sabik. They have been kind guides and support over the years. They have showed me the ropes and have been sage advisors, always at the ready to bolster my confidence when needed. And a special thank you to our 4 amazing council chairs who are committed to bringing to life the mission of our organization. To the members of the board of directors and all the volunteer leaders, thank you for graciously giving your time and your service. You are the heart and soul of the STS. All that we accomplish for our membership and patients is the direct result of your work. To the senior vice presidents, and every single staff member that I could not possibly fit on this slide, you have been welcoming, kind, and supportive. The passionate and true commitment of the staff to this organization is beyond comparison. It has been a privilege to get to know each one of you. And finally, Elaine. I'm going to miss our regular and not so regular calls. I could not have made it through this year without you. You are the consummate leader who I've been very fortunate to learn from every day. You have provided spot-on advice, encouragement, and much-needed humor. The STS is very fortunate to have such an incredible woman at the helm. It has been fun making history with you, as the STS is the first cardiothoracic organization in the world to be led by a female CEO and a female president. And I'm going to tell you, I think it's the secret sauce for success. Dear friend, there are really no words. Thank you seems far insufficient. I am truly blessed to have you as a friend and colleague to share this journey. Your kindness, generosity, and genuine care are inspirational. My fondest memories of my career always have you front and center. And thank you for the Program Planning Committee and Michelle Rush and all the staff who have made this meeting so incredible. There's no other person on this planet who knows me as well as my friend Minta. We met in the cafeteria line at Michigan in 1992 and have been best friends for the past 32 years. With her, I get to be totally me. She asks me the tough questions. She has stood through triumphs and challenges, and I'm grateful she is here today. This trip around the planet would not be the same without you. And thank you, Katie, for the miles that we have clocked along shoreline walks and sails across the bay. Your quiet willingness to listen and find all the bright spots has carried me through this year. And to my family, I grew up in a home where education was a top priority. My parents worked tirelessly to put each other through college and graduate school and continued to do everything for their 3 daughters. My mom instilled in all of us that the sky was the limit and anything was possible. Through her own journey, she modeled resilience and grit that held us in good stead when times were tough and gave me the drive I needed to follow the career path of my dreams. And to my sister Anne, who has always cheered the loudest, even wasn't the easiest. As many of you know, I lost my dad suddenly this spring after a massive stroke. I have walked in my dad's footsteps throughout my life. He is my biggest cheerleader, whose unwavering belief carried me through the hard work. My father had a PhD in mathematics and rose to national prominence within his field with numerous national grants and leadership positions. I was that daughter who followed his academic drive and footsteps. Each of my promotions and successes brought him so much pride. He was the proudest of this honor given to me by the STS. I was very much looking forward to sharing this moment with him. Dad, you were always there to give me a pep talk before a big test or presentation. And I know you're with me, but I really miss getting that pep talk today. I was looking forward to seeing you in the audience, watching your baby girl achieve this moment. I know you're proud of me. I would say this stands for you, Dad. I love you and miss you. That was harder than I thought. And to my family, you have been most impacted on a daily basis by this journey. You are my joy and my purpose. Words will never be able to express my love for you. To my sweet Maximilian and Allegra, I know this year has been hard for both of you, with me having to travel more than usual and spend many evenings on Zoom calls. You two mean the world to me, and I could not be prouder of you for your kindness and grace that you have granted me when I've been tired or pulled in multiple directions. I love you to the moon and back. You have become masters of avoiding the Zoom camera to get the ballet bun done, requesting help with a challenging math problem, or army crawling across the office floor for a goodnight kiss. Starting Sunday, your mama's back. And most importantly, Matthew, this is not the year you asked or had hoped for our family. Thank you for standing by my side so that I could do something that I felt was important. You have dug in deep to help with our kids in our home. You have been my support and sounding board when I have been beyond stressed and tired. You have granted me far more grace than I ever deserved. I love you with all my heart, and I am beyond grateful for the life and family that we have built. I am looking forward to things slowing down so we can get back to being us in our happy place. And on to the reason we are gathered this afternoon. I wanted to start by sharing with you a letter from a patient's mom that helped inspire my address and truly embodies grace. A letter from a mom who I felt I had failed. Hi, Jenna. 3 months later, and I'm just emailing you now. I'm sorry it has taken me so long to send this, because you should know that I've intended to do so since the first week after Charlie died. Thank you. You're an incredible person. Thank you for being a role model and for being so loving to my baby boy. When you first took him on, I already knew you were good. His bedside nurse always told me that you were his favorite, how he had been in screaming matches with you before over patients because you so fiercely cared, but he respected you more than he can even begin to describe. Thank you for taking Charlie on when he was 2 months old. You gave us 4.5 more months with him. Jenna, I knew you were good, but I didn't really think that you would care about my son. Now, I knew that you would care about him in the general way. You do your job well. You fight for every life of every patient on your table. I knew that. What I did not expect was for you to come in day after day and week after week to play with him or try to make him smile or to keep tabs on him throughout every single stage of care. You went above and beyond, and it means more than you could ever know. Thank you for sitting down with me the day we made him a chemical code. I trusted you, but I was devastated. Thank you for crying with me. I was told I would never, ever see Jenna Romano cry, but thank you. Thank you for being so much, for being human in that moment. Thank you for acknowledging the value of Charlie's life enough to sit down, be human, and mourn his impending loss with me. I can't even type this part without crying. Thank you for being so brave to enter into the difficult places. Thank you for fighting for little lives when they cannot fight for themselves. Thank you for your time and your energy and your heart. You are changing lives, the ones you can save through your skill and the ones you cannot through your heart. I know you've seen so many families and so many babies before. And sadly, I know that you've also seen so many babies pass far before their time. I know you've seen Charlie before, but I've only seen one of you. And because of that, you will always and forever hold a special, special place in my heart. You're the brave woman who fought like hell for my Charlie. You gave us your best. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much for everything. Love, Lexi. When I felt I had failed Charlie's mom because he never made it home to sleep a single night in the nursery that she had lovingly prepared for him, she took time out to thank me, time out of her morning, for what I gave rather than to focus on what I had not been able to give. She gave me grace. I know you've all experienced similar moments of feeling personal failure while being buoyed by those who experience the greatest loss. It is hard sometimes for us to pause, let down the shield, and just embrace the moment. Over the past year, I've often reminded my children to grant each other a bit of grace when they would get frustrated with each other or themselves. This most commonly happens while racing out the door to get to school. The concept of simply granting a little extra space, giving someone a little bit of room to not be perfect, to understand that someone may be a bit frustrated or tired, and to assume that people are acting with good intent. Perhaps there are times they do not respond perfectly in their actions or their responses. Whenever I bring up the concept of granting grace, I reflect on myself and my own struggle to do this. I try to impart in my children those parts of myself that I have struggled with the most. Everyone in my world knows I am not good at granting grace to others or myself. It is something I've personally struggled with my entire life. My mother could regale you with stories of my 2 to 22-year-old self. It is a quality that I am not proud of and has definitely held me back in my adult life. My executive coaches worked with me to see in myself when I am jumping in too quickly with the answer or not giving others the space they deserve or need. I take a pause, a deep breath, and a quick trip to my happy place, as you can see on this slide, and work on granting grace. My hope today is to highlight how we can give, receive, and foster grace in our lives and those around us. The power of grace granted every day by the trust placed upon us by patients and families. The gift of grace we can offer to those we interact with every day throughout our healthcare systems. And the importance of granting ourselves the grace to be human. My dad always told my sisters and I to take the high road. That concept came back to life during my time with Dr. McGilvery. It has become my quiet mantra on our leadership calls. It is really the simple concept of choosing the honorable course of action, even when others are not choosing that same path. To opt for integrity over negativity, and according to Dr. McGilvery, there's also a lot less traffic. Taking the high road involves grace, giving in, not pushing so hard, not needing to win or be right. When we are interacting with each other or making a critical decision for ourselves, the high road is not a bad place to be, but it is a conscious decision. Most importantly, we need to give ourselves grace. It is often easiest for us to put ourselves last or to hold ourselves to unachievable standards. The flight attendant's instructions to put on your own oxygen mask first highlights that we cannot be who we hope to be for those around us unless we take care of ourselves first. As we heard in Lexi's letter, the people who tend to be most generous at granting us grace are our patients and families. Recently, while I was rewarming on a neonatal arch reconstruction, I thought of how we take for granted, day in and day out, the heart just starts to beat again. I was operating on this family's second child to be born with an arch obstruction. They had trusted me with both of their children's lives. I thought about what it would be like if it was my own child, let alone both, whose heart was going to be stopped. I honestly do not think I would be able to breathe for the entire time they were on bypass. As many of you know, this moment in history truly belongs to Dr. Carolyn Reed, who was first woman to be elected to ultimately serve as president of this great society. Sadly, her life was foreshortened, and she did not get to stand before you in this role. Dr. Reed was known for how she valued the notes she received from patients and families as a way to refill her bucket, especially when she felt most challenged. Many in this audience have Carolyn Reed boxes on their desk filled with the kind words and photos from patients. My box has turned into a filing cabinet that I visit often. Past President Joe Deraney has reminded many of us that in no other field of medicine is the possibility of death a reality with everything we do every day. How many of you have letters that have helped to lift you up after a patient loss? The grace from a family who reaches out to us, understanding that we are struggling as well, is extraordinary. I can easily see how they might feel frustration and even anger that their hope for a positive outcome was not achieved. In Charlie's case, I honestly believed we could pull him through until he was devastated by a viral illness. I shared many long talks with his mom, Lexi, answering questions and offering encouragement. I truly believed that he was going to survive. The hardest conversation was helping her to find the strength to let him go. Months after the letter I just read, she reached out again to share that our conversations that gave her strength to let Charlie go ultimately were what gave her the strength to save her own life from an abusive relationship. We often do not know the full impact of our care and support. Past President Richard Prager has said we all carry the patients we lost in our mind and heart. They leave an imprint. Many hope that it gets easier with time, but for those who have been in practice for a while, we can attest that it actually gets harder. Embracing the grace granted by our patients and families through their words and tokens of appreciation can help to lighten the load we carry. It is the greatest honor and privilege to have been part of these lives and to carry them in my heart. We never know what the path has been for another person to get to today. What positive and negative experiences shape how they are responding to a situation. Is it possible that they are carrying a heavy burden that is unknown? We work in one of the most stressful professions. The challenges faced by healthcare systems continue to increase, and as a result, the day-to-day stresses that we must navigate. Zero tolerance is important to maintain a place of safety, to allow individuals to voice a concern without fear of retribution, and limit oppression from a hierarchical environment. But there is a real downside. The concept of zero tolerance with confidential reporting and corrective action without discourse can result in inappropriate and at times dire consequences. We no longer talk to one another to express a concern or share feelings. Instead, we hide behind anonymous reporting systems. So much can be gained by simply trying to better understand one another and perhaps grant some grace when someone does not show up at their best. In no way should this be a hall pass for repetitive, disruptive behavior. But what if someone is actually struggling, and the moment they need to be given a hand, instead people opt to turn their back in silence? Grit is a personality trait that describes an individual's ability to persevere and stay passionate about a long-term goal. Shanda Blackman often talks about her signature pearls that she wears in the operating room. I think that's why we may have a lot of people wearing pearls in the audience now. She says, diamonds are made from pressure, pearls come from grit. We live and work in an environment that has a great deal of pressure. Individuals who are able to ultimately succeed and thrive in this environment must have grit. It is important to remember that grit needs to be fostered and nurtured like any trait. This audience is full of pearls. Not a single one of you would be here today if there was not grit within you. It may come easier or be more natural for some, but it's there. Take a moment to acknowledge each other's unique luster. Just like grit, we often hear about the importance of resilience, the ability to withstand and recover from a challenge. The key to resilience is the ability to recover without lasting harm. Too often we assume that if you are surviving, getting the task done, putting one foot in front of the other, that you have resilience. But it's not just about surviving. It is about you thriving. We need each other to sustain resilience. Being aware of when someone is carrying a heavier load or just experienced a significant challenge. When someone needs the grace of time. When someone deserves acknowledgement. Or when some added support can help an individual survive, to recover, and to ultimately thrive. No one of us is bulletproof. All of us will falter at some point. With resilience, we can find a path forward. A chance to forgive ourselves if we did not show up perfectly. A moment to step back and refuel ourselves after conquering a major challenge. As with all buzzwords, new ones come along as a balance. Resilience fatigue is a real phenomenon that often goes unrecognized. When we work alongside people who repeatedly demonstrate resilience and seem like the textbook example of a resilient individual, know that they, like all of us, are at risk for resilience fatigue. It is a state of feeling completely and emotionally drained without motivation. It can occur when we rely too heavily on resilience. No one can survive repetitive physical and/or emotional stressors without a space for recovery, no matter how resilient. We need to make space and time to recharge. To help limit resilience fatigue, we need to realize that high-pressure loads cannot be sustained for extended periods of time. Helping people to learn and foster resilience should be balanced with efforts to reduce the stressors. This includes encouraging people to engage in activities that help to refill their bucket. What brings you joy? I find when I'm getting stressed, the first thing I do is wander the halls, visit with families, and enjoy the smiles of the kiddos getting ready to go home. Getting to hold cute babies for photos and hugs from parents helps to fill my bucket. But yet, when I'm at my busiest and getting pulled in 1,000 directions, wandering the halls is the first thing to get admitted. I unknowingly shut off the tap that fills my bucket best. Part of filling our bucket requires us to acknowledge that our needs and well-being are important and that there are times we need help. Vulnerability requires that we be honest and transparent with our feelings, thoughts, and experiences that are both positive and negative. This is often conveyed by sharing personal stories or admitting our own faults. The mantras in surgery like "that which does not kill you makes you stronger," or "you must be bulletproof to succeed," have truths but downsides. Being a superhero does not require you to be superhuman. I remember earlier in my career when two pivotal moments when I received the gift of vulnerability. When doing one of my first Norwoods, I inadvertently unhinged a commissural post on the pulmonary valve. I immediately called Ed Beauvais to come down to help. He calmly scrubbed in and began by telling me about a time when he had done the exact same thing, but hadn't realized it until it was too late. In sharing his mistake, he gave me the gift of personal forgiveness. Many months later, he called me down to the OR. When I entered the room, he'd gotten into the heart on a reduced sternotomy. It was one of his first adult Norwood survivors that he was very close to. He said, "Jenna, I need you to get her on bypass." This was a task that he was more than capable of accomplishing physically, but on that day, the emotional toll was too great. Another gift. It is okay to ask for help, no matter the reason. He had all the skills necessary, but he needed someone to help carry the stress. Vulnerability is too often equated with weakness. Imagine how empowered those around us would be if we would all allow ourselves to share our vulnerabilities. This is from Kerry Cunningham's presidential address, and it really resonated with me. Just because someone near you is carrying the load, checking the boxes, finishing the daily to-do list, and meeting the deadlines does not mean they are okay. Burnout can result from a multitude of reasons. It can be insidious and impact any of us, and it is often the thing we want to hide the most. Following the pandemic, when work and life seemed endlessly entangled, I found that I was irritable, quick to provide an answer to get a task completed without taking the time to listen, and personally unavailable. My not-so-best character traits were showing through more and dominating. It resulted in problems at home and at work. I had challenging and permanently damaging interactions with colleagues I had once enjoyed. Sadly, no one realized that the change in how I was showing up was because I was struggling. In our world today, it is easier to just assume the person is disruptive and report them. I got in trouble rather than someone offering me a hand. Thankfully, I found a way out because of some very dear colleagues who granted me grace and my loving family. Had it not been for them, I would not be standing before you today. My plea is that if someone is not showing up in the way they historically have, ask them if they are okay. Offer a hand. Give them some grace. You may be giving them a far bigger gift than you know. For many, the transition from training to practice is hard. It's not just taking on the responsibility for patients or operating independently. Suddenly, what has helped you achieve success no longer works. The path to medicine involves competitive colleges, weed out exams, cutoffs for national tests, navigating the match, and surviving residency. To succeed, you need to perform. It is your score compared to the person next to you. It takes long hours of studying, showing up prepared, going the extra mile so that you can climb to the next rung. But that winning mentality and skill set suddenly becomes your biggest liability. Once in practice, as you ascend the ladder to leadership, your needs and accomplishments no longer are front and center. Your ability to build teams and elevate those around you becomes the metric to success. For many with innate leadership skills, this transition occurs naturally. For most, this is a hard lesson as we keep working hard in the same way as our past lives, only to realize we are alienating those around us and limiting our path forward. After working decades to survive the path to being a cardiothoracic surgeon, we need to grant grace to those coming up behind us. We need to step out of the spotlight so the next group can shine. And most importantly, to stand back and applaud the next generation. I came across the concept of the second mountain before reading the book. It goes along with the concept of what will get you there, what got you here will not get you there. There reaches a point when you must shift your focus from your own objectives to the needs of others to help support the next generation. The first mountain represents the pursuit of your individual excellence, whereas the second represents a commitment to connection and support of the pursuit of others. Many of us share our personal stories and vulnerabilities as a way to help the next generation. Much to my husband's chagrin, my second mountain has focused on our own personal struggle with infertility as the result of delayed childbearing that so often occurs in our profession. The most painful and stressful part of my adult life is something that I hope others do not have to navigate. Now that I've reached a point in my career that I am given a platform, the goal is to use that position to help the next generation hopefully climb an easier mountain. Each day, we spend far more hours with our teams in the OR, the ICU, and the clinic than we do at home. They are our second family. I have stayed at Michigan because of the pediatric cardiology family. If we approach each day thinking of our team members as family, I hope we can have the grace to know when someone needs extra care or deserves a celebration for their victories. What we do takes a village, and that village needs care. Throughout the year, I have tried to maintain this sense of care for those around us to drive our initiatives with the STS. Here are a few things that we have done this year to support you on your professional journey and to grant grace. We hear the voices of our members and data managers regarding data collection burden and cost. We want to make life easier while maintaining the high-level accuracy achieved by our data managers. We have developed a unique way to apply advanced machine learning to facilitate data extraction with the same precision for at least 50% of the data elements in the adult cardiac surgery database. We want to ease the load while maintaining the accuracy of the database and hope to share this with our participants in the coming months. Our thoracic colleagues are valued members with needs unique to their patients and practice. I created a presidential task force for thoracic surgery initiatives headed by Dr. John Mitchell, so we could hear your needs and provide solutions. In response, we escalated the rollout of the thoracic surgery lung cancer and esophageal cancer risk calculators with a hope to soon incorporate long-term outcomes. This will help guide the most meaningful and data-driven ability to counsel your patients. And in honor of Lung Cancer Awareness Month, we rolled out a new podcast, Thinking Thoracic. In addition to the thoracic surgery risk calculators, we've added a tricuspid valve and multi-valve risk calculators for our adult cardiac surgery members. To make all these calculators easier to access when counseling patients, a new mobile-friendly app will soon be launched to bring these calculators to the fingertips of everyone on your team. Many members have expressed the need to revisit the star ratings to make sure they are achieving our initial intent. A presidential task force on star ratings was led by Dr. Rich Prager. As part of this process, the star ratings will be removed from the thoracic surgery database while they are maintained with enhanced messaging for the adult cardiac surgery database. We have created the STS Career Center designed to support members with tools, resources, and opportunities they need for professional success. This includes the second compensation survey with the results being presented on Sunday morning. And just prior to the holidays, we launched our new job board along with supporting information to help you navigate the job search and contract negotiations. And finally, as the first woman to serve as president of this organization, today would not be complete without acknowledging the first woman to be board certified in thoracic surgery, Dr. Nina Starr-Braunwald. To quote Dr. Tom McGilvery, her legacy is our future. I hope you all enjoyed the first Nina Star Braunwald invited speaker, Dr. Jennifer Doudna, as she shared her journey to the development of CRISPR gene editing technology and the Nobel Prize. More offerings will be forthcoming from the Nina Star Braunwald Center as it continues to launch this year, beginning with support for executive coaching. And in honor of Dr. Nina Star Braunwald, who made her personal and family life a priority in a time that was unheard of, while also pursuing a career as a cardiac surgeon, I want to spend our final moments on how we do what is the hardest: granting grace with ourselves. As I stated earlier, the first person we are willing to compromise is ourselves. How many times have you canceled a doctor's appointment only to realize that you have put off your health maintenance for years? How often do you leave the hospital with pain in your back or radiating down your arm that you ignore or self-treat? Physicians are notorious for allowing personal health needs to lapse, to self-treat, and self-medicate. It has been repeatedly shown that physicians live shorter lives, despite committing our lives to helping others live longer. We have spent decades putting our health and well-being second. Historically, that mindset has been applauded and fostered as ideal surgeon mentality. But how do we help the next generation live longer? I will be the first to say that I do not have the answers, nor do I walk the talk, and my family will wholeheartedly agree. But with baby steps, I hope to make progress. We all work endless hours. As a surgeon, there are no clear lines of being on or off. I put everything on my calendar, and after much work with my coach, I no longer feel guilty. A doctor or dental appointment, or even a hair appointment, is clearly visible on my calendar. Big, bold letters say, cannot miss, cannot be rescheduled. My assistant, Kim, will tell you that she is far better at following this than I am. I will be the first to try to jam in a case, and she will remind me that I have something that cannot be moved. It is good to have allies who have your back and remind you to stay true to your original intent. I put school pickup and drop-off, important kid activities, tennis lessons, appointments with my personal trainer on the calendar. The beauty of living in Ann Arbor is you can get anywhere in 10 minutes. So perhaps when you have a late day in the OR and many night calls, the best time to work out is at 9 a.m. I do not feel guilty about taking that time for myself. That's me putting my oxygen mask on first. We all pay it forward with endless work hours, but we will not be here for our families or our patients if we do not take the time to care for ourselves. As cardiothoracic surgeons, we tend to hold ourselves to superhuman standards, even higher standards than we set for those around us. We often fail to grant that extra bit of grace to the person most important, ourselves. Long days sometimes do not end the way we had hoped. We take on more tasks than we can complete. We forget that we are human. By opening ourselves up to the grace granted by our patients, their families, our colleagues, and our own families, we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to be forgiven, and to heal. I hope many of you made it to the special session this morning on Vulnerability Makes You Whole. I think hands down it was the best session of this entire meeting. I am grateful to Carrie Cunningham and Reagan Collins for making the trip across the country to share their work. Their research is eye-opening. It is striking that the rate of depression amongst new surgical interns is only 3%, far lower than their same-age peers. It would seem that they are happier and more satisfied as they enter the medical workforce. Yet within just 1 year, that number increases tenfold, so that 1/3 of interns experience new onset depression. What have we done to our best and brightest in such a short period of time? What happened to these individuals who as students clearly had resilience and grit to get where they are? In the recently published survey by Drs. Cunningham and Collins of 600 medical students, trainees, and surgeons, 26% reported a prior mental health diagnosis. 16% screened positive for current depression, 18% for anxiety, 11% for alcohol use disorder, and 17% for PTSD. Those who experienced a medical error had higher levels of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and hazardous alcohol consumption. How we process and are supported through medical errors or feelings of inadequacy is critical to the long-term well-being of our colleagues. The report proposes the use of specially trained groups that work with individuals to cope with personal and professional stressors, including operating room deaths, fractured relationships, and anxiety around professional advancement and patient care. I think everyone in this room has experienced one of these emotional states during your training or your career. Imagine if someone helped you carry the load. The pandemic highlighted how resilient healthcare workers are and simultaneously demonstrated how wounded the workforce has become. Prior to COVID, 1 in 16 surgeons reported suicidal ideation in the past year. In the post-pandemic world, 1 in 7 now reported suicidal ideation, higher than the risk of breast cancer in the US. In their recent survey, 9% of respondents had experienced suicidal ideation in the last 2 weeks. Think of how many people that means in a room this size right now. We must care for the surgeon more than the surgery. By caring for the surgeon, the success of the team and patients will benefit astronomically. We need to acknowledge that mental health is part of our health like any other physical ailment. We need to remove barriers to confidential care and modern licensure requirements regarding disease disclosures so that those in need can get the help and we can all thrive. I started this address by sharing the source of my inspiration, my children and my patients. I have been blessed with 2 of the kindest and most empathic children who inspire me to be a better person every day. This past fall, they read the book Wonder, a story about a 5th grade boy named Augie Pullman. He has Treacher-Collins syndrome, which is associated with significant craniofacial abnormalities. In the story, Augie is navigating his first year not being homeschooled, with those big challenges of being a kid, but with the added challenge of looking different from everyone else. The book centers around precepts shared by the school principal, with each character having a personal precept. As I read the book, admittedly after watching the movie with my children and being inspired, these precepts resonated with me and aligned well with this simple concept of grace. I would like to share my personal favorites. I strongly encourage you to read the book or at least watch the movie. When given the choice between being right and being kind, choose kind. Your deeds are your monuments. Kind words do not cost much, yet they accomplish much. And most importantly, Augie's precept. Everyone in the world should get a standing ovation at least once in their life, because all overcometh the world. Every person in this audience deserves a standing ovation for what you give each day. Please see that in yourself and those around you. You may just end up giving someone that gift of grace and kindness that carries them through a storm. In closing, I'll be honest, I set out on this year as STS president with trepidation and anxiety. This is a daunting role for which I felt very ill-prepared. Just as I was hitting my stride, my dad passed away. He had just turned 80 with no major health issues. My cheerleader, the man who wanted to read every president's column and hear about my latest trip, was gone. When I started working with my executive coach, she asked me to write my own obituary to see if I was living my life in the way that I would hope. In writing it, I realized I was not, and could see how easy it is to get caught up in the hamster wheel of one more task or one more month, and then I'll be able to take a break and do the things I want. My father was a workaholic his entire life. As a result, he lived in his later years with many regrets. His unexpected death meant he would no longer be around to enjoy watching his grandchildren grow. He would no longer be able to enjoy all the things he had deferred for years. He would no longer be there for me. This year's been hard. As a profession, we need to commit to making work and life less difficult for ourselves, those around us, and especially the next generation. I hope we learn to be more vulnerable and realize how important it is to be a supportive community for each other. My wish is that each of you give and receive grace every day. We all have incredibly difficult jobs. We are human, and sometimes we fail. But moments of grace, like the one offered by Lexi, are so important to our ability to carry on. My prayer is that you hear the words your patients and families share with you. Let them be that life preserver that buoys you when the seas are rough. Thank you for granting me the privilege of this moment and the honor of serving you in this great society as your president this past year. Thank you.